Okay, I got the bastard keyboard here. Also tweaked the settings so the video should be a bit better. I just wanted to show you um, here the thumb cluster is a mess. Connecting it is always awkward and you have to play around a bit and basically try 1,000 different solutions until you find what works, and that's a lot of effort. So yeah, now I just work with the skeleton system here. Let's go forward in the timeline here. So what I did here is I extruded the plate, part of the plate, still not touching the thumb cluster area because when I was designing this I knew it was going to be a difficult part, so I didn't want to touch it yet. Then I connect the thumb cluster and see those holes in between the columns. Typically at this point you would want to start either lofting, which is here. You can see all the columns are lofted together, or um, if you're working on something like me, yeah, just don't touch it. Let's see what I do next. Start working on the thumb cluster area. Here on the thumb cluster I do the same trick with the chamfer, and I start connecting it to the plate. Yeah, same thing, connect it to the plate, and on my bastard keyboard, the whole same thing. The whole thumb cluster is all connected everywhere, and for the mini and the skeleton, I played a bit around with printing different versions, and I found out that what worked best, like it was okay to have this whole switch at the top hanging on to this, but you want to check maybe by printing only the thumb cluster if it's solid enough and if it will move, because typically this is 3.5 millimeters, and on my skeleton version 1 this was almost 6 millimeters I think, but this will not move at all. Meanwhile this will move a little bit with 3.5 millimeters. This will move a little bit when you're inserting the switch, which is no problem because it's PLA, it's pretty solid. It's not ABS, but and during normal operation, just pressing on all the thumb cluster switches, it doesn't move at all. Then I continue connecting everything. Here I did the loft. Then at this point I spent quite a bit of time trying to connect those two columns to the thumb cluster, and that proved to be a mistake because it took super long to do all the tests, and I didn't find any solution where I was happy with the looks of it. So in the end I just decided to go against it and have the columns just float in the air. But the problem is then that you have those two columns and the bottom is kind of just floating. And let's look at it from the bottom here. Those two are just attached from the top, so they will move quite a bit at the bottom here, and you don't want that. Here that's not a problem because everything is connected. But what I did on my first let's find its first skeletal is I said, okay, I'm not gonna think about it too much, and I'm just gonna do it like the other columns, which is have walls that go all the way to the plate, and that's nice. But on my new design, the columns go quite a bit further because of the PCBs, and also yeah, this is not very nice. I have uh, ribbon cables that need to go through here, potentially RGB cables. It's not really easy at all to route. So what I decided to go with instead is to connect the bottom of those two columns together and then to the third column. So this loft here and this loft here. This already gives quite a bit of strength, but it's still floating here, so Is it here? Yeah. Extrude, chamfer like usual, and then loft. At this point, for the skeletal, I connected the middle switch here, and because the bottom was also connected to the plate, but here I just connected the bottom switch, and it works pretty well. It's also very big. It's almost 3.8 millimeter wide. Again, print a test, check that it works, then added a chamfer, fillet, sorry. Okay, and then I fillet everything. See, voila. It's not necessary because this angle will already look pretty good in a print, and it depends on what you're looking for. I created only rounded lofts and then I added fillet. But if you want something a bit more angle, with a bit more angles, you can play with that and just have straight lofts with very sharp angles everywhere. So here I just, let me try and get you vision of everything. I just added fillets to everything. Oh, fusion is correct. Okay, fusion is back. I even added a fillet to this top thumb cluster switch here because it looked nice. Then okay, then at this point you're basically ready to print your first full test, and I would recommend to do that because the next steps after that, like the whole keyboard is already there, right? So what you want to work on next is adding fillets a little bit everywhere. If you like a bit more rounded look, you want to add the the holes for the screw inserts. You want to add a hole for the USB and audio jack, or RG for RG something, whatever you're using, and that'll that'll take a lot of steps, and you want to make sure that your keyboard is already looking kind of like what you want it to look, because if you make modifications, if you have to go back and do modifications, I mean, Fusion is okay at it, but there's a good chance that by modifying something, then the design of your screw holders and audio jack and everything will be messed up, and you will have to do it again. And that's double work you want to avoid. In the back here, I extruded a bit higher because I knew I was going to have my audio jack hole somewhere here, and it's going to be pretty high, so this was a bit too low, just made it higher. Also connected those two columns here at the top. And okay, something that happened is I printed one of the first prototypes, which looked like this, right? Space everywhere, and I had problems here around those two columns here at the bottom and top because the whole case would flex quite a lot, and it's not a problem per se if you use it for personal use. You just have to be careful when inserting the switches, but I did want to work on the strength of it and make an overall very solid product. So what I did at this point is I manually created sketches inside of the column. So I created a sketch here, for example, and another sketch here. Then I projected the switch holders onto the sketch and I connected them with the loft. And I did that a little bit everywhere, so between those two columns and then those two and those two and those two as well. But I did keep a lot of empty space in the keyboard because I wanted to, well, it helps with sound, it's easier to design, I think it looks very nice. Um, let's also show you the audio jack. Okay, yeah, let's look at the audio jack and USB-C here. So if you look inside, you'll see two things. First, they have a certain size. And again, depending on which audio jack you use, depending if you use USB-C or micro USB, And depending how you install things, this is made for a PCB, which has both the lead C and the audio jack on it. Typically, if you're gonna hot glue the audio jack, you want to leave a bit more space. And this extrusion into the case here is so that the whole wall is exactly 2 millimeters, because that's what I found works best. I just put the Elite C flush against the USB-C hole here, and the USB-C will kind of go inside the hole, maybe half a millimeter or something, and then once you insert the USB-C cable, then it will insert perfectly and be almost flush against the case. Same thing, that's something you want to test. Just generate an STL, make a cut of this little part of the case, don't print everything, and then print a few tests. Takes maybe 1 or 2 hours, and then you can do multiple revisions and check what works best. Then the screw holders. So for the screw holders, yeah, perfect. Can I get it bigger? Here should be better. This is not, well, this is the screw holders, but for my Elite C holder PCB. And this is a PCB that I released a few days ago on GitHub. There's the KiCad files, and there's the gerbers as well. And it's basically a PCB that you solder the Elite C and the audio jack on, and then also has a reset button and RGB pinouts and headers and screw holes. And that's why I put my screw holes here. But if you're using something else, like I know some black pills have also screw holes in them, that's something you want to change. Or if you're going to hot glue the Elite C or your Pro Macro in there, I've seen quite a bunch of different solutions floating around. The sandwich solution, I believe it's called. Or what I used to do is I had a 3D printed holder in which I will screw in the Elite C like a sandwich, and it will hold, and then I will just screw the whole thing into the bottom plate and screw the bottom plate onto the case. Let's open back the bodies here. Here. So those are my screw holders for the Elite C holder PCB, and I use 4mm screws, so the screw insert size is almost 5mm wide. Same thing depending on the screw holder, and just print some tests. And then I do basically all the other screw inserts, and what I like doing is I just place the holes wherever there's no switch too close to. So on the Mini that's a problem, because typically I would like to add another screw holder on the top here, but I cannot because it will make the switch here difficult to install, so I put it here. And that could be a problem if typically you have a lot of cables inside and you have that push against the plate, and then the plate will not be completely flush. But I just make sure when installing, building those keyboards, that everything stays inside the case and the plate just doesn't move, even though it's not screwed in here. Then what do I do? Okay, and this is for the tenting plate, and that's it. That's basically in 10 minutes how I create a keyboard in Fusion 360. And I did give some pointers, like use chamfers, use lofts, but that's just how I did the Mini. And the original bastard keyboard, which is here, I did very differently. Even see here, this is flush to the switch holder, while this is not. And I would recommend not doing that. I would recommend using the same technique everywhere, because if then you want to remove the holes and connect all the switches together, it becomes way easier. Because typically, for example, here you'll have something like a triangle to connect, and here's a square. You have all kinds of different shapes because of the way you did it. And Fusion lofting does not like that at all. So that's it. I hope it helps a bit.